Hi everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and I am back tonight very excited because I finished up the first part of the Gateway's conclusion, which is, let me get to it here. Of course, this is the conclusion of Book 1, which was One Small Step by Susan Wright. And then just tonight we finished up the conclusion, which is entitled One Giant Leap. Of course, written also by Susan Wright. So, very short story. We're looking at, let me see, 41 pages, and it took me like 5 days. I was slacking, and I will say that. I will own up to it. If I would have just sat down and read it, it would have been done in a day. And it was so good that I wish I'd given it that time. But I didn't. Let me get this out of here. I kind of like it better like this, right? Anyway, this was, like I said, the conclusion to the first book. So I've been eagerly awaiting this one ever since, oh goodness, when did we start this whole series? This series we began on the 13th of July. And this book I finished July 21st. So over 2 months now since I've read this one, so I did have to go back and I kind of refreshed my memory. I didn't watch my video. That's something I've never done. I've never went and like watched my own video. I think that would be very weird for me. But I did go back and I read my notes and I kind of went through the book again too, just kind of just to kind of refresh my memory basically. And it was a fun one, right? This was of course where they're picking up right after the episode and they're on this space station, and right at the end, of course, Kirk has to jump through the gateway because the Petraw, the two Petraw, Tasm and Luz, they're kind of like scuffling with it at the gateway, and then Kirk jumps in at the last minute with them, and they escape, and that's the end of this. And then this is nothing. This picks up. So, one small step, one giant leap. That's cool too. I like that naming thing that they did. Now, again, a short story. You could read it in a day, easy. And what I will say is, for me, it was a bit of a spooky story. And maybe it wouldn't be a spooky story for everybody. Maybe it wouldn't hit that same kind of vibe. And if you are like claustrophobic, it hits a very creepy, claustrophobic vibe. And in addition to that, just a more, almost like a Geiger-esque kind of quality to it. It was very, a good start to the spooky season, as I like to say here. So I had a definitely good time with it. And again, the only complaint is I should have read it faster. I just took too much time. I could have just jammed right through the thing and enjoyed it that much more, as you can do. So, a lot of fun. So, I'll just dive right into it here. This is going to be definitely a shorter one than usual since we're talking about a bunch of short stories. And I'll be back to do this, like 6 more times or whatever as we go through this book. So, that's going to be so fun, right? So, they jump through. Their destination is the Petraw birthing world. So immediately they're kind of in this very, foreign, creepy-looking landscape where he reaches out and he touches like the wall, and he describes it as sort of like a wet suede kind of feeling, right? And everything is kind of comprised of these different tunnels, So they get into a bit of a scuffle right when they land, of course. But pretty much immediately, the defenders of the birthing world come and get them all and capture them. They put Kirk into a cell, and he's kind of sealed into this cell as well. It's like one of the first kind of creepy things about this was that the doors aren't so much as doors, rather just like they, open and close like that. And that's kind of creepy. So he's sealed in the cell, and they took his phaser, they left him with his communicator, so he wrenches the cover off of it, right? It's got that metal cover, and he uses the busted hinge, cuts through the cell, you know, since it's like this kind of wet suede stuff. And he's able to, you know, squeeze his way out, you know, like Ace Ventura, you know what I'm talking about? So he squeezes his way out, and now he's on the loose there, going around, and he gets his kind of first glimpse of this world. And basically all these Petraw are just kind of going about their business, doing their work, and he's able to kind of sneak around and not be noticed. He eventually gets a suit for himself, and the the suits that the Petraw wear were kind of funny in themselves. Think of like a bag, but with arm and leg holes that start like at the elbows and the knees, right? And everything else is just kind of bag with a big hood, right? And that's their general suit that they all wear as they're kind of going about their everyday business. Eventually, he's able to find their sleeping rooms, you know, their sleeping chambers, and that kind of picture a big, wet suede honeycomb, right? And he climbs up into the thing, and he's able to find an empty one. And when he gets in there, he lays down, takes a rest, and that's when he finds this information feed, which basically is like this depression in these chambers, and when they put their heads in there and they kind of zone out, they're able to kind of catch the news, you know. That's how they catch up on all the news and events and things that are going on within their society and all that. So through that feed, Kirk is able to learn that TASM is basically being celebrated for bringing this thing back. Luz is being called defective for going against TASM, who was, you know, the commander of that mission, and is being put to death by being thrown into the pit. And Kirk figures out that the pit was kind of that place where they first were, which was a big platform overlooking a big pit. So he decides he's going to go there and try to save her and get an ally. So he beats them to the punch, gets there, kind of hides above the door, you know, right? Does some classic Kirk karate chops, knocks him out, saves Luz, and then this is where one of the kind of really, I don't know, claustrophobic parts begins, because they now have to be on the run and constantly crawling and moving through these different tubes, maintenance tunnels, and again, just small tunnels made of wet suede with gooey doors that you have to like squeeze and open through. And also, if you don't know where the doors are, you can't find them, right? So he's at like her mercy to find everything and find all the doors. Otherwise, you could just be stuck in this chamber. Oh my gosh, at one point they have to hide in the food pits where they keep all this royal jelly that they feed everybody, right? And they have to hang on to the lid of the pit by their fingers with the door shut above them. They can't drop in because the sides are so smooth, there'd be no way to climb out. They would just basically tread water until they drowned in the royal jelly, right? I thought that was really creepy too. That's just like thinking about going out that way. That would be terrible. But anyway, they make it through that. Lots of crawling through claustrophobic tunnels, hiding and avoiding people, and also wheezing the juice. They have to get their nourishment out of these tubes where they basically drink this royal jelly, right? So the whole thing is just very creepy and off-putting, right? So they eventually decide they have to get their way out of there. They need to find out where they took the gateway. So they move to this experimental portion of the birthing world where, in case anything happens, the Petraw can easily kind of destroy and seal off this section so that, you know, any disasters won't affect the rest of the birthing world. So they get down there, more tunnels, more crawling. They eventually find their way into this area, and they're kind of way up in the catwalk looking down, right? And they see TASM, and they do their initial first operation of the gateway there, getting things open, and the Petraw are able to get it up and running. They do a successful test, the guy goes through, and now they're ready for like phase 2. So they go to shut down and they move, and then of course in classic fashion, this Luz has got to kind of start some trouble. Kirk, who turned out the lights? Hello, I'm back. Kirk. Anyway, Kirk was going to try to cause a distraction with his communicator. Luz was like, "What are you doing?" Now they start scuffling over it. The communicator thing, the lid drops, and now they've been spotted. They get spotted. They get hauled away, and one of the kind of the creepiest parts of the whole thing, you get to meet the matriarchs of the Petraw, of this birthing world. So they pull Kirk and Luz in front of this big giant chamber, right? And in the walls of the chamber, all around them, are these matriarchs. And they have full upper body, but in place of the legs is this like blob, which kind of melts into the wall, right? And they all kind of speak with one voice, and that's when Kirk realizes that basically this whole place is like made up of them, you know? So like really like the whole complex is like generated from these matriarchs, you know? So and that's like very creepy. It reminded me a lot of like Alien and like, I don't know, very creepy. Anyway, he kind of realizes at this point there's no negotiating with these people. So he's going to have to take matters into his own hands. Tasm has his phaser, and when they're all kind of, I don't know, reverent and in awe of these matriarchs, he makes his move, knocks Tasm down, gets his phaser, and then he jumps on top of this goo sack that's kind of floating in the middle, right, hanging by this thing, you know? Jumps on top of this thing. I'm imagining it's like swinging. He's swinging on it. He's got his phaser. They're all screaming, going nuts. They're like, "Oh my God, what's he gonna do?" And what does he do? He pops the goo sack. So he pops this big giant sack of royal jelly, and falls down onto the ground. Everyone's freaking out, and I guess like the males, it like burns them. He seems to be fine. He just kind of runs away. Luz also runs away. They get down out of that area. He sets his phaser back to stun, and he starts stunning people on the way as he's running down. They eventually make it to the gateway, and Luz wants to take the cylinder, which controls it, and go through so that she can, you know, make herself powerful on some other world or something. Kirk knows there's only one option. They've got to jump through and make sure that no one can follow them, and that's what he does. He set the old phaser to overload. He pushes her through after he sets the controls to Starfleet Academy. That's where they're heading. And then as he jumps through, he throws the phaser at this kind of like magnetic reactor, which is powering the whole thing in this whole experimental section, right? So he does that, pushes that through. They jump through, they land in Starfleet Academy. On the other side, the guards come through. Boom! The whole place goes down. The gateway, the cylinder, everything basically falls into this pit, and that's the end. Kirk finishes up by basically convincing Starfleet Academy to let Luz go about her own business, and it kind of ends with this ominous, you know, her people are still out there, and they still could be coming. So, really very fun. And again, I don't, you know, they're probably not all going to be like that, but I think that she really took a very, very, very creepy tone with this book. And I mean, I don't know if that was her intention, if she was writing with that claustrophobic feeling, you know, that I was getting, and that very just creeped out of these matriarchs. And I mean, it didn't say how many, but I'm imagining like hundreds upon hundreds, you know, up in this gigantic room, and they're all talking at once, and it's like overwhelming, and then imagine they're all screaming and wailing, and like he's popping the big sack of goo, and it's crazy. So, man, that was a fun one. I'm really liking this kind of format too, this short story format, which has kind of given me an idea for maybe where I might want to go with the next read. But right now, where I'm going to be going is on to, yes, the next one is the Star Trek Challenger series, which was awesome because it was a whole new cast of characters that I got to get to know. So before I can get back into that, I'll have to find the book again, reference my notes again, remind myself again of who all these great characters were, and then we'll jump right into that. And hopefully find the time tomorrow to really give it a good, a good big long dose of time. So we'll see what we can do. Hey, that's it for Gateways Part 1. We'll be back for 5 more of these, and it's going to be great. As always, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Live long and prosper, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Good night.